Have you ever had a dream so vivid, so emotionally charged, that when you woke up, it felt like it was more than just imagination? Maybe you woke up with tears in your eyes, or with your heart racing. Maybe you felt a deep longing for someone you've never met, or visited a place that felt familiar, even though you've never been there. Some dreams carry an existential weight that's hard to explain. It's as if they touch something that exists beyond time, something that lives in the deepest layers of the soul. In this video, we're not here to prove anything. We're not here to tell you what's real or what's not. We're not trying to convince you that past lives exist, or that every dream has a mystical origin. Our goal is something else entirely: to invite you to reflect. What really happens when we sleep? And more importantly, why do certain dreams leave such a strong impression that they influence our decisions, our emotions, and even the way we see life? Science has made great strides in understanding the brain mechanisms behind dreaming. Yet even so, there remains a layer of untouched mystery, a realm where reason meets intuition, and where the invisible touches the visible. In this script, we'll explore a perspective that brings together science and spirituality. We'll talk about how dreams, even when examined through the lens of neuroscience and psychology, can act as powerful symbolic portals. Portals to what? To forgotten memories, to paths we never took, to emotional patterns we keep repeating, to versions of yourself still waiting to be understood. When we talk about portals, we're not necessarily referring to physical gateways like in science fiction movies. We're speaking of metaphorical portals, those that transport us inward. Dreams, when observed closely, can act as mirrors of what remains unresolved, of what needs deeper attention, and often of what is finally ready to be healed. As you move through this script, you'll notice that dreams are presented as tools, as signs, as invitations, and above all as possibilities for choice. Because in the end, what makes us human is exactly that: the ability to choose to evolve, to choose to forgive, to choose to take a new path. Get ready to dive into a journey where sleep is not just rest, but a kind of rehearsal for the soul, a symbolic crossing that may reveal who you once were, who you are, and who you are meant to become. Despite all the mystery surrounding them, dreams have been the subject of scientific investigation for decades. Modern neuroscience has contributed significantly to understanding when and how we dream, even though the why remains, for the most part, a field open to interpretation. During sleep, the brain goes through different stages, but it's during the so-called REM sleep, rapid eye movement, that the most vivid dreams tend to occur. In this stage, our brain activity resembles that of the waking state. The brain is incredibly active, even though the body is deeply relaxed. Interestingly, this is also when the body temporarily switches off muscle tone, almost as if to prevent us from physically acting out the movements happening in the dream world. The role of neuroscience: setting the stage for dreams. In neuroscience, some brain structures are especially relevant during dreaming. The hippocampus, for example, is linked to memory formation and consolidation, and appears to play a key role in recombining memories and emotions into dreamlike scenes. The amygdala, associated with emotional processing, especially fear, is also highly active during REM sleep. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for logic and critical thinking, becomes less active. This may explain why dreams often seem so illogical or surreal, and yet, while we're dreaming, they make perfect sense. This combination of brain regions in action suggests that dreams might function as an emotional laboratory, a space where the brain simulates experiences, reorganizes feelings, integrates recent and old memories, and even rehearses responses to complex situations. Freud versus Jung, bringing the unconscious into focus. Psychology has also shed light on dreams, especially through two major figures, Sigmund Freud and Carl Gustav Jung. Freud saw dreams as expressions of repressed desires. For him, what the ego censors during the day escapes at night in the form of symbols and distorted narratives. In this sense, the dream would be a window into the personal unconscious, a field where traumas, fears, and forgotten desires manifest in disguised ways. Jung, on the other hand, believed that dreams went beyond the individual unconscious. He proposed the idea of the collective unconscious, in which all human beings share a common base of universal symbols, the archetypes. For Jung, dreaming of a wise old man, a hero, or a shadow wasn't merely personal, it was access to ancestral symbolic patterns that connect us to humanity as a whole. The unconscious as a symbolic reservoir. From this perspective, the unconscious is no longer just a box of traumas and desires. It becomes a deep symbolic field, almost like an inner theater where the soul enacts, night after night, themes we don't always manage to face while awake. And this is where we enter the most sensitive territory of the topic. Could it be that some dream symbols have roots in experiences we haven't lived in this lifetime? Is it possible that, even from a symbolic standpoint, a dream might echo something that transcends our current biography? Traditional science still doesn't have the tools to confirm this hypothesis. But that doesn't mean the subjective experience, what each person feels when they dream, should be dismissed. After all, even if a dream is just a construction of the brain, it can contain profound insights about our fears, our aspirations, and even our unconscious choices. And it is precisely at this point that the connection between science and spirituality begins, when we recognize that the dream world, though invisible, can have very real effects on who we are and where we're going. Imagine waking up from a dream in which you were someone else. In another time, maybe on another continent, you spoke a language you don't know, wore old-fashioned clothes, and were immersed in a life that, rationally, you know isn't yours, but emotionally, it felt intensely familiar. Have you ever experienced something like that? This type of dream is more common than one might think. Thousands of people around the world report dream experiences in which they inhabit realities far removed from their current one. Lives in other eras, unknown cultures, characters with names, features, and emotions that have no connection to their waking identity. But why does this happen? Reports and studies on past life dreams. Researchers like Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist from the University of Virginia, documented hundreds of cases of children who claimed to remember past lives, often with striking detail, including names, dates, and precise information that, in some cases, could be historically verified. While these studies are more associated with reincarnation than with dreaming, they touch on a delicate point: memory that doesn't belong to one's current biography. Another important figure is Carol Bowman, a therapist and author who documented cases of spontaneous regression in both children and adults, often initiated or reinforced by vivid dreams. In her research, Bowman observed that these experiences often surface during moments of emotional crisis, loss, or major life transitions, as if the unconscious were seeking, through these symbols, a deeper meaning for the present moment. Unknown dreamscapes, or deep archetypes. But is it really possible to dream of a life you never lived? From a skeptical perspective, such dreams would be the product of our vast imagination. After all, we are exposed to films, books, music, images of ancient cultures, and mythic stories from early childhood. Our brains have the capacity to recombine those memories and create astonishing narratives, without that necessarily meaning we've actually lived them. However, from a symbolic perspective, what matters most isn't the historical accuracy of the dream, but what it represents emotionally to you. Ask yourself, who are you in that dream? What was the emotional tone of the experience? What message did that other identity seem to carry? These dream characters may represent parts of ourselves that are asleep, aspects of our personality that are asking to be acknowledged or integrated. A woman who dreams she's an indigenous healer might be accessing a forgotten intuitive wisdom. A man who dreams he's a Viking warrior may be confronting a repressed need for courage or leadership. Even if symbolic, these dreams can be profoundly transformative. Connections to emotional patterns and present-day blocks. Now imagine that this dream character is not just a symbol, but an emotional echo of a recurring pattern. Many people report dreaming of tragic deaths, persecution, judgment, or betrayal, and then realize they carry irrational fears in waking life, such as an unexplained fear of crowds, rejection, or abandonment. What if the dream is trying to show you the symbolic origin of that fear? Even if the origin isn't literally a past life, the emotional content of the dream may represent an unresolved trauma, a choice left unmade, or a deep need that has long been ignored. For example, dreaming of a life in which you were betrayed might reflect a current difficulty in trusting others. Dreaming of a culture where you were free and expressive could point to a present-day block around showing your true self. Dreaming that you were a warrior on a battlefield might reveal a constant sense of alertness, even in safe environments. The unfinished mission as a life metaphor. Many times, what the dream brings is an interrupted mission, something you didn't get to finish in that symbolic world, but that you now have a second chance to resolve. It could be as simple as forgiving someone, or as profound as finally living authentically after years of repression. This perspective turns dreams into keys to deep emotions, unconscious patterns, and possibilities for healing. When you allow yourself to listen to these messages without needing to prove anything, you may realize that some of life's greatest mysteries are already within you. And maybe, just maybe, the characters who visit your dream world are quietly saying, "You're not beginning now, you're simply continuing." Some dreams don't take us to distant worlds or turn us into other people. On the contrary, they place us face to face with ourselves, with an intensity that can be almost uncomfortable. These are the dreams in which we find ourselves at a crossroads, and we fail, or we hesitate, or we choose something we know, deep down, we shouldn't. Have you ever experienced that? Sometimes we dream we're back in a moment from the past and get a chance to do things differently, but we don't. Or we act in a completely new, bold, liberating way. And when we wake up, we feel the echo of that decision in our chest, as if the unconscious had shown us who we could be, or who we're still avoiding becoming. Dreams as alternate scenes from the same script. These dreams function like alternative versions of our life, as if the unconscious, or the soul, were saying, "Look, this is what happens if you keep choosing this way, but see what could happen if you dare to choose differently." Typical examples include dreaming you're in an old relationship, but finally say what you never had the courage to. Dreaming you choose a different career path and feel a deep sense of relief. Dreaming you meet someone and, instead of running away, you stay, and everything changes. These scenes are more than memories or fantasies. They are symbolic mirrors that reflect our unresolved decisions, the flavors of our regrets, or the paths we've never explored. The dream self as a guide to evolution. Who are you in the dream? A passive observer? A bold initiator? Someone who sabotages themselves? Or someone who finally breaks free? Paying attention to the behavior of your dream self is a powerful exercise. Because often, the way we act in dreams reveals the version of ourselves that is trying to emerge. It might be a more authentic self, more impulsive, more vulnerable, or more assertive. And in waking life, that version is being repressed by fear, social norms, or insecurity. This dreamed version of you acts as an internal guide, pointing toward where the soul wants to go, even if the rational mind isn't ready to follow yet. Repetitive dreams as emotional or karmic alarms. Another important sign is when the same dream repeats. It might be the same setting, the same dilemma, or even the same emotion. Examples: always dreaming you're late. Always dreaming you're running away from something or someone. Always dreaming you miss an opportunity out of fear. These patterns aren't random. They function like emotional alarm bells, warning you about a cycle that's also repeating in your waking life. Often, the dream is trying to show you where you're stuck, whether it's due to a trauma, a fear, or an unconscious loyalty to older versions of yourself. In some spiritual traditions, this kind of repetition can also be interpreted as a karmic memory, the soul trying to resolve a lesson that has been left unaddressed for a long time. What are you trying to decide, but haven't? Maybe you're facing a choice right now. It could be professional, romantic, existential. And your dream, with all its symbolic language, is simply trying to get you to see what you already know, but haven't admitted yet. Because on some level, the dream doesn't bring ready-made answers. It brings reflections. It doesn't tell you what to do. It shows you what is already being done or avoided within you. And by paying attention to those reflections, you come closer to a truth that can't always be put into words, but echoes deeply in the heart. You already know what you need to choose. You just need the courage to wake up and choose. So often, we underestimate the power of dreams because we wake up and go about our day as if nothing happened. But what if, instead, you treated your last dream as a personalized message from your psyche, or even from your soul? What if it were a disguised insight, a symbolic compass pointing toward important decisions you need to make right now? That's the idea of this section, to recognize dreams as internal guides, ready to help in moments of choice, especially when the rational mind is clouded with doubt. Turning dreams into practical compasses. Imagine that when you dream, you step into a room with multiple doors. Each door represents a possibility. Some you already know, others you'd never even imagined. The dream then invites you to explore without judgment, to try out paths, to test behaviors, without the consequences of waking life. This nightly rehearsal can bring intense feelings, sensations of relief, fear, courage, or revelation. When you wake up, you might not remember everything, but the body remembers, the heart remembers, and if you pay attention, you'll notice the dream left clues. The question is, will you ignore them or follow what was shown? Tools for personal interpretation. In order for dreams to truly work as tools for conscious decision-making, you need to create a channel of active listening. And that can be done through simple practices accessible to anyone. Here are a few. Dream journal. Writing down your dreams as soon as you wake up, even just fragments, is one of the most powerful practices. Over time, you begin to notice patterns, repeating symbols, recurring themes, changes in your dream self. Writing also helps keep the channel open. When you show your unconscious that you're paying attention, it responds with more clarity. Emotional wheel. Take your most recent dream and try to identify the dominant emotions. Did you feel free? Afraid? Guilty? Excited? These emotions act as inner compasses. Often, the content of the dream is symbolic, but the emotion is literal. And what you feel in the dream may be pointing directly to something unresolved in waking life. Recurring archetypes and symbols. Analyze the characters and settings in your dream. Ask yourself, what kind of figure appeared? Mother, child, animal, shadow? Does this symbol appear often? What part of me might this figure represent? Very often, the wise old man in a dream isn't an external person, it's your inner wisdom trying to emerge. The abandoned house may reflect your neglected emotional structure. The stormy sea might represent repressed feelings. A guided exercise to make decisions with dream support. Here's a simple practice you can do now or adapt as a meditation for your quiet moments. Close your eyes and think of the last vivid dream you had. It doesn't matter if it was strange or confusing, just recall the essence. Now ask yourself, who was I in that dream? Was I passive, brave, hesitant, bold? Was there a choice to be made? What decision was taken or avoided? And finally, what was my soul trying to show me? You may not have an immediate answer, but simply asking the questions opens a field of perception that was previously asleep. Dreams as subtle counselors. You don't have to believe in reincarnation, spirit guides, or past lives to recognize that your dreams carry wisdom. The unconscious is intelligent, symbolic, and deeply connected to your most honest emotions. And if you start listening closely, you'll notice that many dreams aren't trying to confuse you, they're actually trying to prepare you. Prepare you to choose what you've been avoiding. Prepare you to let go of what has already expired. Prepare you to embrace what has finally arrived. Because in the end, dreaming isn't about escaping reality. It's about rehearsing life before living it. Some dreams pass like light clouds, almost forgotten by morning. But others, rare, deep, unforgettable, leave a mark that stays with us forever. These are the dreams that wake us up in tears or in ecstasy, with a racing heart and a sense that something inside us has changed for good. These dreams are not just symbolic. They are transformative. They mark internal turning points that sometimes unfold into concrete changes, bold decisions, or emotional healing that had long been waiting to happen. Let's now explore 3 impactful stories, real or fictional. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that each one carries the power to show how a single dream can ignite an entirely new life. The woman who dreamed of being burned as a witch. Clara, a 42-year-old woman, lived what seemed to be a normal life. A good job, a loving family, a stable routine. But behind it all, something felt stifled. A constant fear of expressing herself, of speaking her mind, of showing who she really was. Until one night, she had an intense dream. She was a woman from another time, chained in a public square, about to be burned for witchcraft. In the dream, she screamed that she was innocent, that all she did was use herbs and natural knowledge to help others. She woke up in tears, and yet, feeling an inexplicable relief. That day, Clara made a decision. She signed up for an herbal medicine course, something she had always wanted to do but had hidden from others out of fear of judgment. Not long after, she left her corporate job and began working with natural therapies. For Clara, the dream was more than a symbolic memory. It was an ancestral liberation, a call for her voice to no longer be silenced. The man who dreamed he was imprisoned and quit his job. Eduardo was a manager at an engineering company. Rational, methodical, He didn't believe in mystical stuff. But for months, he had the same recurring dream. He was locked in a dark cell, hearing knocks coming from inside the wall. One day, in the dream, he decided to touch the wall, and it opened, revealing a sunlit forest on the other side. He woke up with a feeling he had never experienced, a thirst for freedom. 2 months later, he quit his job. He used his savings to open a small business that combined his love of plants and design, a vertical garden studio. For him, the dream was an emotional push, something no spreadsheet or rational advice had been able to give. The prison cell was a clear metaphor for the environment he was living in, and the forest was the freedom he longed for. The reunion with a love from another life. Marina had always felt something strange when looking at her husband. Love, yes, but also a kind of inexplicable disconnection. Until she dreamed of a man she didn't know. In the dream, they were together in what seemed like an ancient time, perhaps medieval. There was war, loss, pain, but also a deep connection, souls intertwined. In the days that followed, she couldn't stop thinking about that man. Then, in a conversation with her husband about the dream, she realized something important. She was projecting onto that dream partner everything she felt was missing in her real marriage: presence, vulnerability, touch. It didn't lead her to leave her husband. On the contrary, it sparked a journey of reconnection. She brought the dream into therapy and little by little began to rebuild with her real partner the bond she longed for. The dream served as an emotional mirror, revealing what her soul was yearning for and what was still possible to live in the present. The soul speaks when it's ready to change. These stories show that dreams don't need to be proven to be real. What matters isn't whether there really was a past life, or if everything is just symbolic. What matters is that the impact is real. These dream-born turning points are powerful reminders that something within us is ready to bloom. And more often than not, the soul uses the dream as a gentle, yet radical, way to say, it's time to change. Whether you are skeptical or spiritually inclined, it's impossible to deny that certain dreams carry deeply therapeutic potential. And when those dreams seem to come from other lives, they touch on an even more intimate level, the level of the soul seeking reconciliation. Even if one doesn't literally believe in reincarnation, these dreams function as powerful metaphors, capable of accessing and releasing emotions, traumas, and patterns that seem to have no logical explanation in one's current life. How these dreams are used in transpersonal and regression therapy. In transpersonal psychology, a branch that merges traditional psychology with spirituality, dreams involving past lives are often used as entry points for deep therapeutic sessions. Therapists who work with regression, for example, report that many clients come to them after a powerful dream, such as a violent death in another time, a traumatic separation from someone who is still present in their current life, a role of power, sacrifice, or guilt experienced in a completely different historical context. These dreams become starting points for emotional exploration. Rather than interpreting them literally, the therapist helps the client access the emotions that surface from the dream and understand how those emotions are playing out in their present life. Recognizing and releasing inherited emotional patterns. Very often, the person realizes they are trapped in repetitive patterns, always putting others first, feeling guilt without cause, fear of standing out, a constant sense of not belonging. These patterns can be seen as symbolic inheritances from a past experience, real or not, that remains frozen in the unconscious. The dream, then, acts as a mechanism of release. It gives name, image, and story to a feeling that, until then, was only a vague discomfort. By recognizing this pattern and understanding it as part of a larger narrative, the client can let go of what no longer needs to be carried. It's as if the soul is saying, "You don't have to keep living this. You've already learned." Reconciliation as energetic healing. Some people report that after dreaming of a death, a loss, or a mistake from the past, they wake up with an unexpected sense of peace. It's as if the soul, within the symbolic realm of the dream, has finally closed a cycle. This kind of reconciliation doesn't happen in the logical mind, but on a more subtle plane, the plane where deep emotion transforms. The person wakes up different, lighter, clearer, more ready to fully live in the present. You don't always have to understand, just feel. Not every dream needs to be explained. Sometimes, it just needs to be welcomed. Because the true therapeutic value doesn't lie in confirming past facts, but in the internal transformation it provokes. And if you allow it, your dreams can become invisible allies in your healing, revealing where the pain still lives and where your liberation begins. After everything we've explored so far, maybe you're starting to feel that dreams are much more than just things the brain makes up at night. Maybe you've already realized that each dream is a coded message, a half-open door, an echo of the soul whispering for you to pay attention. Throughout this script, we've journeyed through different layers of the dream experience. The science that explains, the psychology that interprets, the spirituality that feels. We've seen how dreams can reflect emotional patterns, unresolved choices, symbolic traumas, and even stories that seem to come from times we haven't lived, yet somehow belong to us. But above all, what remains is this invitation. Look at your dreams with more presence. They are not random. Even the most absurd, the strangest, the most seemingly meaningless dream carries within it a seed of truth. You can use your dreams as tools. You can write them down, meditate on them, reflect on what they're trying to show you. You can see them as symbolic portals, windows into yourself, showing paths your mind hasn't yet seen, but your heart already recognizes. And it doesn't matter whether or not you believe in past lives. Because in the end, dreams aren't really about what has been. They speak, above all, of what still needs to be lived with truth. They reveal hidden truths. They guide decisions you've been avoiding. They bring to light emotions longing to bloom. And sometimes, one simple dream is enough to change everything. As we've said before, the soul rehearses in dreams what it longs to live with awareness. So the next time you close your eyes at night, know this. You may be stepping into a portal. And when you wake up, maybe your soul has already chosen the path it wants to take. Are you listening?